2013 is the MS International Federation Year of the Young Person, and I really wanted to share with people what it's like to be diagnosed today, and a person that was diagnosed when they were perhaps a little younger, over 20 years ago. So I'm really delighted to have two wonderful ambassadors here for MS Queensland, Eleanor Rigdon and Yvonne Kelly, and together we will just share some insight and your thoughts on sharing with people on what it's like to be a young person living with MS. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Yvonne, what year were you diagnosed?
I was officially told, personally, in 1988, but I had been diagnosed by a neurologist in 1984, but he had told my GP not to tell me because I'm fully recovered from neuritis of the optic nerve, which I was a bit upset about. And when I found out, I told the GP that he's never to keep anything from me.
And Eleanor, what year were you diagnosed?
I had my first attack in April 2011, but I was officially diagnosed about a year later in around April 2012. It took that long to sort of get all the tests done and get things figured out, and I went travelling for a bit, so it was all very long waiting lists. So yeah.
You both, even though you're quite newly diagnosed, and Yvonne, you've been diagnosed for a far long time, but you both really had an amazing impact personally on the society for all the work that you've done. Yvonne, can you tell us about the different roles that you've had over the years and maybe how they came about?
Got nominated for a chair of PWSQ Queensland. That was in 91, and I stayed there till 93. Resigned because I was feeling fatigued and tired. And then I asked for a nomination onto the board, which I got on, and I was on the board for 17 years.
Fantastic.
Which I enjoyed, and it meant that I could talk to people with MS and find out their problems and take it to the board, and hopefully I've done some good.
You have. Amazing impact. And Eleanor, just again, in that short time that you've been diagnosed, but you've been so busy and done so much to share with people more information about MS, but can you tell us the other things that you've been involved with MS Queensland?
So I began with MS Queensland. I threw a fundraiser as my sort of coming out parade, I guess you might call it. You know, I hadn't told anyone about my MS except my immediate family, my partner, and people were starting to notice. So I really thought I need to do something about this. I need to make this some sort of, some sort of functional activity. And we threw a fundraiser, and through that I wanted to raise money for MS Queensland. So made contact with Julie, the community fundraising coordinator, and from there it all seemed to escalate. We did really well with the first fundraiser, and since making contact with the girls, I've done a few speeches at public functions, speaking for MS Queensland, advocating the cause, and just giving people a face to put to the disease, and just campaigning on through my own means, doing the MS Moonlight Walk, and now I'm setting up to do the event again this May.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Hopefully.
Well, the first thing I'd say is it's frightening at first, I can understand that, but life does go on, and my attitude for me has been, and I've tried to instill in other people if I can, if you're having a bad day, just say tomorrow may be better. Just live one day at a time, still plan future. I have to say, when I was diagnosed and going to physio, I had a physio say to me, set yourself 3 goals when I first come here, and at that stage I couldn't drive my car. I was living with my mother. I owned my own home, but I couldn't live there because I needed help. It took me 8 months to learn to drive the car.
So Eleanor, how has your reality changed from your initial diagnosis, your thoughts, and to where you are now?
Oh, well, the initial diagnosis was, I didn't even know what MS was really. I just had this horrendous vision of one of those, remote diseases that no one ever really talks about because it's awful. And I always tell people this story. I came home on the bus thinking that my hair was gonna fall out, like it does when you have cancer treatment. And yeah, that never happened. But obviously, my perception of MS is a little bit more, in some ways, it's a little bit more frightening because I truly understand the randomness of the disease now. You know, in that there can be absolutely no warning sometimes. But yeah, so that bit's a little bit more frightening. But in terms of day-to-day living, you know, that's something that really only, you know, a few years has done for me. You know, that I'm going to be okay, generally speaking, no matter what happens. It's just something that I live with now, and yeah, living for the better, really.
Just looking at the time difference from when you were diagnosed, on social media, internet, instant communication is just rampant now, and even I'm a bit scared by it. Not as accepting, I think, as Eleanor is and her friends. How was it when you didn't have information at your fingertips? So how do you think that has, what were the benefits of that, do you think?
Well, I've only just got a computer 6 months ago, so I'm still learning how to use a computer.
So you've lived that long without it?
Yeah, and I have to say that I didn't really want a computer because I had, if I needed information, I used to come, you know, ring someone from the society. The communication, it's wonderful for people that live outside Brisbane to look up information.
But back when you were diagnosed, what were the benefits of not having this instant communication and just relying on the telephone, wasn't it really?
Having telephone conversations with people and also talking to people who are in the society, you know, like your psychologist and your ATs and your social worker. And
do you think more people were willing to pick up the phone then, compared to today?
Much more, yes, definitely. I can say that there's days that I've been on the phone for 8 hours a day. It was like.
And so what do you feel are the advantages for you now that you have all the information at your fingertips? Is that you enjoy that? You found that a positive experience?
Technology is definitely a twofold thing. In terms of communication, as Yvonne was saying, there is definitely a wall with people not getting in a regular contact because of the internet. You know, they can find the information they need without needing to contact someone. But on the other flip side of that, I do find that emailing people is really a much easier step to take when you're quite frightened and you don't know who the face is on the other end or something. You know, that can be taking away that little bit of personal contact can sometimes be less intimidating. I would say that the main disadvantage though is we used to study it's a sort of a joke disease, they call it hypochondriacs, and you know, it's people who just sit there googling their symptoms and frightening themselves into believing that they have something awful. And I put that into practice myself when I was being diagnosed. I went for a lumbar puncture, and of course I went home straight away and started googling lumbar puncture, and there's all these very medieval you know, old England people being tapped with all these big metal rods and things with no anaesthetic, and I was hyperventilating by the time I walked in there, you know. So that can definitely be a downside, because you do tend to read about extreme cases because they're the ones that get publicity. But on the other hand, it has been wonderful being able to connect through the internet.
So we've had a lot of communication from people asking how they can get younger people to support groups, to their meetings, to get them involved. Can you share any tips, and do you think what could help or to make this happen, what people could do? So Alana, what do you have any ideas to bring? Just we were chatting earlier how we know that when you have that diagnosis and it's we don't need to belong, we're okay.
Yeah. It's definitely, you definitely have a barrier about being categorised with sick people, and it's, you know, taken me 2.5 years to come to terms with, you know, the difference between suffering from MS and living with MS, and living with MS is very much what I do now. But yeah, you need that time to yourself after your diagnosis. You do need a bit of time to yourself. But after that, you know, having other people to talk to is lovely. You know, just meeting someone. I remember meeting my first person with the disease. She came to my fundraiser, and you know, it was a bit of a shock. She was on a walking stick, but it was lovely to have someone who, wasn't my family. I wasn't burdening. I wasn't making sick with worry by talking to about everything, and who I could say, these needles horrible, and they totally understand. And I think you just need to give, to get young people into support group. You need to give them something to connect to. So you need to, because when you're not thinking about it, all you see is like in your head, you might see something from a movie or a circle of chairs somewhere really dingy and far away with lots of people that you don't know. You need to give them something familiar and something to connect to, so that you can get in there and get them that support. Because support groups would really be a lovely thing.
That's great to hear. And so, what advice would you give someone who was newly diagnosed today? If you met someone outside here, what would you say to them?
Well,
what advice could you share with them?
It depending on the situation and depending on the person, I would try and get them to open up personally and let them tell me
Melanie,
their
what would you
story.
share as someone's newly diagnosed?
That's actually really easy. Two things. Firstly, I'd tell them not to be scared to live their life exactly the same way they were before.
Exactly.
Especially in the early years, the disease is set its course, and by torturing yourself over, having a few drinks with friends or staying up late or, whatever you usually do with your time, you're actually making things worse because, whatever, take the example of having a few drinks with friends, whatever damage that is doing to you, which is virtually none, you're outweighing that with the stress you're putting on yourself from excluding yourself. And excluding yourself is just the worst thing you can do. Just be the exact same person you were before, and then you'll be living with it, not isolating yourself or causing more stress on your mind, which is just, I'm a big advocate against stress. It's the devil. Another big thing would be just a mentor. Someone who mine was a woman named Mel. She was a nurse from who taught me how to inject my medication, and it was just a lifeline to have somebody, just one person, like early in those days, support group would have been too much, but just someone who knew, okay, great, I'm your friend, I'm here to tell you all this, and those sweats are absolutely fine, this is exactly what's going to happen when you inject this medication, and this is exactly how to work it, and to tell you practical little tricks, that the neurologist can never tell you, I didn't know about air conditioning in summer, and I didn't know about taking paracetamol to keep your temperature down, and I didn't know so many just tiny little tricks of the trade that it's just amazing to have one person. She became sort of like my maverick, someone who could do everything in that situation, and now she's sort of phased out because I'm much more independent, but someone who knows the ropes, one person early in the piece, it was a nurse or a counsellor or someone from services, they just, someone who knows what's going to happen and can tell you. That's definitely it.
Information is very important.
Yeah, so I think that comes back to for the year of the young person, just looking at the typical age of diagnosis. That's what we were talking about, that when you were both diagnosed, it's about knowledge is power, isn't it? And that information sharing, whichever way you can get it. I think that's just that's what I like to share with people as well. It's and the right information that you hopefully will gather, not going onto those wrong websites, etc.
Yes.
But going to those key people who are in the know, who can share the right information with you.
And getting onto the right websites and
Being directed and that first time it was someone who, and like you said, there's all these privacy law considerations, but it was someone who sent me an email and then she followed up with a phone call and said, I'm going to come around to your house and show you how to inject your medication. And that was just a miracle, because I was kind of just floating in this horrible limbo of, being told I had a disease. Oh, by the way, there's nothing you can do about it just yet. It's like, come on, it's going to be a lifeline. So it was really nice just to have some contact with somebody.
Oh, well, thank you so much, and I hope people watch this so they can share in the wonderful information that you have so kindly given us today. And I just love, that was then, this is now, but things haven't really changed, that we all need support and the knowledge and information. And so we hope that people will have a wonderful year of living positively, the year of the young person with MS, but hopefully with what they need, they will engage with the MS Society to get the support that they need.
Exactly.
Yes.
And hopefully they may come across your paths as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Yeah, it's been wonderful. Thank you.